Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to World of Warships. This is the Benson class destroyer. If you are unfamiliar with it, it's a US Tier 8 destroyer, and they are very, very good at skirmishing, as we're going to see in this replay. What I use my US destroyers for is not just to skirmish with other destroyers, as you can pretty much destroy any kind of fellow destroyer type that you may encounter, but also they're quite stealthy and they can be used for capping. And capturing these points, the A, B and C point, gives you quite a bit of experience, as you probably know if you're playing the game. As for the ship itself, I have 5 gun turrets on this ship, 127mm or 5-inch. And I have 10 torpedo tubes. 10, right? God, I've been playing this thing for ages, but I just cannot seem to remember that. Anyway, yeah, 10 torpedo tubes. I'm going to head to sea first, and as you can see I have my speed boost consumable active. I want to get there before everyone else does. Now the resistance that I can encounter there is another Benson, a Fubuki, another Tier 8 or a Tier 6 Mutsuki. But the one that's really going to come after me is the Hiryu, their enemy aircraft carrier. And I'm not sure what I ever did to this guy, but he was hell-bent on killing me. He just kept coming after me time and time again, and you're going to see that in this replay. Now, as for the rest of my team, we have quite a few ships heading towards A. You can see a couple of battleships and a few cruisers heading to A. We have another destroyer over to my right, that's the Hatsuharu. Hatsuharu is a Tier 7 Japanese destroyer, and he's going to also head to C. Which is good news for me, because it means more targets for them to shoot at and more torpedoes for them to dodge. Hatsuharu is not a gunfighter like the Benson, but it can put a lot of torpedoes in the water and be, well, relatively stealthy about it. Over to the north or northeast at this point I have a couple of aircraft which have been launched by our own carrier, another Hiryu. And he is seemingly trying to go around, trying to avoid any kind of detection by the enemy fighter squadrons, which are currently flying over B. And he's seemingly going for the enemy carrier, or at least something to strike at there. Now I'm pushing pretty far into the C zone, because I want to find their destroyer. Not necessarily to fire at it, but just to have it fire at me. Dodge its shells, and by firing it's going to stay recognized, or it's going to stay visible for the next 20 seconds. It's a tactic that I came across a while ago, and it really does seem to work. Because if I don't fire and I make my distance, or I keep my distance to the enemy ship, you will see that I disappear. Whereas the enemy destroyer, who is going to fire at me, is likely to stay detected if he doesn't back off very, very soon. There's the Benson, 6.7 kilometers away. I have not yet been spotted, and as you can see I'm holding my fire. I'm asking my fellow cruisers to fire at this target. And now I've been detected, so now I might as well fire anyway. Because this guy seems to be distracted with the Hatsuharu. First round puts him on fire. A couple more rounds are going in, and he seems to go after the Hatsuharu consistently. But I also have the backup of another cruiser here. I have a Kuchezov. Kuchezov is firing torps, so I have to make sure I don't hit those. And this guy with his very, very flat shell arc is hammering the Benson. There are a lot of torpedoes in the water though. Those were the torpedoes fired from the Benson, so I have to maneuver a little bit to make sure I don't get hit by those nasties, because 1 or 2 will knock down this ship. The Benson is burning, and I believe that the Kuchezov finally killed him off. Now, torpedoes dodged, and here's another flight of torpedo bombers, so it's going to be good fun trying to dodge all of those. Now, this carrier driver was doing everything right. He was coming in with a cross drop, so his first drop is perpendicular to me, and the other one is coming in right there. I narrowly avoid them. Not quite. I did take 1 torpedo, but fortunately those air-launched Japanese torpedoes don't hurt me that much. And I still have 13,000 hit points left. Now, in case you're wondering why I have 18,500 hit points, it's because of the Survival Expert perk that I'm using. It gives me, I believe, 400 hit points per tier of the ship. So you get 3200 hit points for tier 8, which this ship is at. Anyway, with the destroyer dispensed with, we have now captured C. A is being contested and B is captured by the enemy. I know that the enemy Benson is out, but there is another target over there. There's a Mutsuki. Now the Mutsukis are stealthy little buggers, and their capability to hurt my battleships here, the Amagi and the New Mexico, are not going to be happy with a destroyer around. So I'm rushing to that position as best I can. There's the Mutsuki again. I believe he's being spotted by the spotter aircraft from perhaps Amagi here. And at 9 clicks range, I'm not that likely to provide accurate fire. I found that the Benson is really good at knife fighting. So we're talking ranges of, say, 6 to maybe 8 kilometers. After that, the shell arc becomes too high to aim properly, especially for a small and very maneuverable target such as a Mutsuki. The Amagi is playing it pretty risky here, going pretty closely around the island, and thus making himself a pretty easy target for the destroyer. The destroyer, though, might be going after the aircraft carrier. And there it is. It seems to be going for a direct beeline for our aircraft carrier, so we have to nail this guy before he gets there. He has fired a couple of torpedoes at the New Mexico, and the Amagi is now trying to hit him as well. Not really getting any lucky hits on him, though. And that's when our carrier drops a few torpedoes on him. And he gets them. Ranger Joe gets the kill by destroying that thing with a couple of torpedoes. So, the battleships are very, very happy with their threat dealt with, and I can go back to my capping duties, back to B, in order to make sure that we get more capture points. As far as the teams go, we are 1 ship down as far as the enemy team goes. We have lost the Kuchizov, we've lost the Nürnberg and the Hatsuharu versus a Benson and a Mitsuki. So we really need to start killing some cruisers, or preferably a battleship, to make life on the existing ships or the surviving ships a bit easier. That Hipper there, Asterix 1110 or Asterix 110, is pushing into C. If he does that, they're going to have another, let's say, 1.5 zones, and that is going to cost us points. Now this is when another dive bomber squadron comes in. You can see it's right overhead. I have been detected by it, and I'm really not sure what this guy was doing, but if he had to pick between me and a battleship, Japanese dive bombers are always going to be more effective against the New Mexico. And something else that I did that usually helps is just before he dropped the bombs, I swung my ship around to make sure I presented a smaller target. And that worked, because I just did not get hit at all by that bombing run. Here's the Hipper, and our New Mexico is going to be slugging it out with the Hipper. I'm seeing if I can assist this guy with a couple of torpedoes, but it's a bit risky. If I do fire and the New Mexico gets into range, I might actually end up hitting the New Mex, and that's not something I want to do. So instead, for now, I'm just going to be capturing B, and pretty much waiting for other ships to start helping out at sea, because I do not want to give my position away. Sometimes it means that you just have to let your friendlies take some damage, and especially battleship against a couple of cruisers. I would like to help the battleship, but it's tough, because my position as a stealthy ship, as a capper, is, as far as I'm concerned, much more useful than going to do a one-on-one with a cruiser and probably lose. A couple of torpedo bombers flew overhead, so they know I'm here. And instead I'm trying to close the distance to the Amagi and the Nagato over there. That's when I spot the North Carolina, which seems to be AFK. Bravo captured. The enemy has captured C though, and our battleship, the New Mexico, is not doing very well. Although with his remaining hit points he should be able to kill the Hipper and the Bujoni. He's also pushing into sea, which means that the enemy now has no caps whatsoever. Another dive bomber squadron comes in, again missing me. That's when I activate my AA, trying to get a little bit of damage in, but nothing really seems to hit. So, next move. Time to find the enemy cruisers with some torpedoes. The Hipper has managed to run himself aground, and he's heavily distracted with that battleship. At 10,000 hit points, I can usually whittle him down fast enough to make sure that I survive the encounter. Or at least that's the plan. And of course he's not just being hit by me, he's being hit by other ships as well. There's a cruiser kill. But honestly, I did not really do a lot of damage to that cruiser. Our New Mexico has unfortunately died. Now, fighting it out with a Bujoni is tough, because a Bujoni has some very, very flat arcs, meaning that the guns have such a high muzzle velocity that the shells don't arc up as much as mine. And with myself being positioned right underneath a dive bomber and a couple of fighters, I'm a pretty easy target. But the Bujoni gets nailed by our carrier. Carrier saving our ass again. And as I put in chat, the third time's a charm. So he finally managed to get one hit on me, put me on fire, damage a module, but nothing my repair team couldn't handle. Now, since I have nothing else to fire at, I'm just going to go for this New Mexico after I'm done capturing. I know it's not usually a good plan to fire at AFK ships, it's a bit of a waste of your firepower. But I have nothing else to shoot at, and if we kill a battleship, that does help. That really does help in the points. Because killing a battleship gains us 40 points and loses them 60 points. So it's, let's say, a 100 points net result for us. Trying to put this guy on... Sorry for not being able to finish my sentence there, but at some point during the World of Warships replays, the game is just suddenly up, the game crashes, and the video crashes with it. So that's why I wasn't able to finish that sentence, that I got hit again by the torpedo, but it didn't actually do a lot of damage. And I had just enough hit points left to survive. Anyway, here's the battle's results screen. Quite a number of target hits, mostly thanks to hitting that the North Carolina without being returned fire at. I only got one torpedo hit on the North Carolina, shot down a couple of aircraft, destroyed 2 ships. One, I believe, was the Hipper and the other was the Benson. A couple of targets set on fire, 1 incident of flooding, and I captured 3 bases. As for the team score, have a look at the amount of experience I got. I didn't do that much damage, but capturing really helps. Capturing gets you a lot of experience and a lot of income as well. As for the detailed reports, this guy Sogwell Ewain, I thought he wasn't going to do that well, but he got most of the XP on the enemy team, despite seemingly wasting a lot of damage potential on me. But okay. Damage done, a lot of damage done to a passive target, the North Carolina. A little bit of damage done to the Hipper, the Benson, and some damage done to the carrier. And I gotta say, I do have some XP modifiers. I believe I was flying one of the signal flags that gives you 50% additional XP. But still, capture stuff. Capturing stuff really helps you. And not just you, it helps your team, because it forces the enemy team to either kill more or to respond to your caps. Which means that you have the initiative, you can keep going, and you can force the enemy to do what you want, which is to come to your cap circles. Alright, that was the first of my near-death experiences. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, next match, and this is gonna be another near-death experience. As you may have seen, this is a different ship. This is the Fletcher class, as I'm very happy with this ship, as it is a massive upgrade over Benson. It is a little bit less drifty, it responds better to the rudder. You have quite a decent amount of AA on this ship, and your torpedo tubes have generally faster faster reloading and longer range. Although I believe at the time of this replay I was still using the stock torpedo tubes. So I have a torpedo range of, I believe, 9.2. Of course the tooltip does not work in the replay system, thank you Wargaming. But I believe it's 9.2 for the torpedoes. The team consists of mostly tier 7s and a few 8s. There's a rare 9 here and there. We have a couple of tier 9 cruisers, runes and ibukis, and we're going to need those cruisers and their firepower to start dealing with the enemy destroyers, because an Udaloy, a Kagero and a Fletcher is going to be quite a dangerous situation combined. We do have a tier 9 Iowa going up against a tier 9 Izumo, and most of these ships I can pretty safely torpedo, provided that I'm not going to take fire from any of these 4 destroyers. Now instead of going for A, I decide to go for B, right in the middle of the map. And while the Benson is, while the Fletcher is pretty fast, it is not great. I found the Fletcher to be a little bit slower with its base speed than the Benson. So that's why I'm flying one of the signal flags that's helping me to boost a little bit of speed, going up to 38.1. The benefit of the Fletcher is that you have the capability to pick the defensive AA fire. And this, in case that there's an enemy aircraft carrier around going after you, it will really help. The Benson can also get this upgrade, or this consumable, but it has to sacrifice 1 gun. And considering that I don't see too many aircraft carriers around lately, but I do see a lot of destroyers, whenever I'm using the Benson I prefer to have 5 guns instead of 4 guns and decent AA. Because as you've seen in the last replay, even though you don't have the defensive fire AA, you can still use a lot of, or you can still pretty reliably dodge any incoming airstrikes. Anyway, moving into B, and it seems that the Atago here has the exact same plan. I believe that... no, it just won't show me. That's weird. For the AA consumable, it will show me smoke, and torpedoes, not so much. I stand corrected. I have the upgraded torpedoes on this ship, which means that my torpedoes are fast and that I can reload them pretty quickly. Now I'm sending 1 salvo of torpedoes into the water. That's when I spot the Udaloy. And seeing that there's an Udaloy over there means that the Fletcher is probably not going to be too far off. And they have already killed their Benson. I'm not surprised, because a combined fire from a Fletcher and an Udaloy is going to pretty much ravish any kind of destroyer that we may be able to field, including the Fletcher. They just have so much firepower that it is really destructive. I managed to get a couple of decent hits on the Udaloy, forcing him to move. I want him out of the cap circle. But I have to be really careful, because that thing has some really good guns, and I prefer not to get hit by them. But considering the damage that he's doing, I think he may have been firing armor penetration, since he was probably battling with our cruiser, which is slightly off to my right. The Atago is firing. I'm trying to avoid his fire and slip away back into stealth. You can see him trying to see where the ship is headed. Even if you're not firing torpedoes, just using the torpedo lead indicator can really give you an idea of where the target is, where it's turning to, what its plans are, etc. Now the plans of this Atago and this Pensacola that's also going to come in seem to be pretty clear. They want to capture B. But the Atago is probably a bit hesitant with my torpedoes around. And as a whole, the Fletcher, if you have one of those against you, is a pretty scary ship, provided that it doesn't fire at you until you can see it. I completely derped my torpedoes into the island there, as I was hoping they were going to hit the Atago, but no such thing. That was one of the worst torpedo launches I have done so far. Another torpedo launch going, trying to find the Atago, and the Pensacola was not really clear. I was not really too sure where I was going to head. Now my detection range for the Fletcher is 5.8. I have Concealment Expert on this ship, and I can only get detected if ships get closer than 5.8 clicks to me. The Pensacola got a few torpedoes, but unfortunately it started turning away, which of course I should have predicted. But unfortunately I did not quite see it coming. I thought he was going to go pretty much straight for me, and it turns out that the guy was not that silly. He was just turning behind the island to avoid any other incoming fire. He does take some fire, I believe, from maybe our New Orleans over there, or no, not that Pensacola, it's too far away. I'm still waiting for my torpedo tubes to reload. I believe that there's a bug with the replays because I'm not firing these super broad salvos. I'm firing smaller salvos, so more narrow salvos. With the Pensacola distracted, I engage it, trying to do a little bit of damage, maybe put him on fire, force him to use his repair consumable. That's when the torpedoes are coming in. But not my torpedoes. These are torpedoes likely fired from the Hatsuharu just before it died. Couple more hits. Nothing really too devastating, and the Pensacola does survive for now. Although it is on fire. Now the fire may have been caused by me, or it may have been caused by someone else, but at least that cruiser is toast. So, back to capping B, and trying to keep that Udaloy spotted for any assisting ships, preferably cruisers, to come and help out, because we desperately need that ship dead. And you're going to see quite a lot of that Udaloy. It is going to take a while to defeat that little ship. You can see he's firing at the New Orleans, and with his guns, he can do a lot of damage to the New Orleans. New Orleans is also being fired at by the Fletcher and the Otago, and he goes down. Now I'm still hanging around B, still trying to see if it's clear enough to cap, and right now it seems to be. With the Fletcher all the way over to my right, the Udaloy right ahead of me, and the Otago slightly off to my starboard beam, I should be able to cap this and get away with it. So again, into B, which does broadcast my position, of course. They will know where I am. Now, it's no big surprise what my intentions are. They know that I want to cap it. They know that that's the plan. They know that that's what destroyers are for. And I am definitely not going to be firing my guns. I am considering putting torpedoes into the water to fire at sea, hoping that the Otago and or the Udaloy may be continuing their speed and trying to get some torpedoes in on them through the through the small opening there. But it's a very, very long shot. I'm not going to try and take it. To the direct north, we have an Agado and a Tirpitz. And this is going to be the new target. One of these ships is going to go down. I'm going to look for the highest hit point ship, because I need that thing dead. Or at least I'm a pretty safe ship to start to deal damage to it. The Tirpitz seems to be coming my way. The Nagato is not coming my way. He seems to be heading north. So the Tirpitz is by far an easier ship to go after to try and destroy. I'm typing in chat where the Kagero is, because I believe that he might be hiding somewhere over there, because I keep getting reports from Peter saying torpedoes. Peter, by the way, was using the Iowa, so he's probably informing either of the Ibuki or the Rune about it. And exactly where that Kagero is, I don't know. We do know that the Fletcher and the Udaloy are over at sea. Now this Tirpitz is seemingly going for my cruiser. The cruiser that's right behind me there, the Pensacola. He also has torpedoes coming in on him. It's not going to be very, very healthy for him to stay in this situation forever. So I need to start and nail this Tirpitz fast. Now, I'm trying to see where he's going to be, and I expect him to come out from behind the island by the time that I get to the island. So I'm trying to park the island between myself and the Tirpitz, trying to close the distance. And at this point I was a bit worried that the Tirpitz is going to try and turn away. But no such thing. The Tirpitz is sailing in straight lines, and that despite the fact that he's probably aware that there's a destroyer somewhere over B, and that destroyer is probably going to come out and get him. Now again, the torpedo salvo is a bit weird, because I was actually using this salvo, the smaller one. but it's not exactly registering that. Torpedoes are in the water. Unfortunately, I cannot use the torpedo monitoring system. Oh, actually, yeah, we can. Torpedoes are going in. There's the Tirpitz, and yes, I disabled the UI for this. Tirpitz is completely unaware. He has no clue what's going on until he sees all of the torpedoes in the water, at which point this happens. Target destroyed. That got us a bit of a breather, and it got us quite a few points. However, the enemy team has the Udaloy, the Atago, and the Miyoko going for B, with the Fletcher probably in hot pursuit. So I have to be, again, really careful about picking the engagement here. So what my intention is right now is to stay pretty close to B, probably do some torpedo runs, maybe get some gun hits on the Udaloy if it gets too close, and probably, or hopefully, avoid fire from the destroyer and the 2 cruisers that are out there. This is where the game starts to get really, really tense, because we are going to be evenly matched. It's 5v5 at the moment. Most of our ships, though, are out of position. We have 2 cruisers, we have the battleship and another cruiser. I'm the only destroyer that's left. And destroyers versus cruisers is, well, depending on the captain skills, it's going to be in the favor of, I would say, the destroyer, because you can determine when and where you're going to strike and not the other way around. Now I'm firing at the Miyoko, but the game, again, due to the wonky replay system, will not properly register that. And there's the result screen. 7,500 XP. Again, I did have quite some modifiers on, so it's going to be a bit less if we look at the net XP that I got, which is another 2540. Aetherian, who is a rank 1 player, means he's a really, really good player, has come in at second point, 2405 XP. His platoon mates, Aetherian was not platooned. The Rune did quite alright, and his buddies in the Ibuki and the Iowa did, well, pretty okay, although I expected more from the Iowa. I'm not sure why it died so fast. Detailed reports says that I did massive amounts of damage to the Tirpitz, which is correct because the torpedo salvo, of course, immediately destroyed that ship before he had any chance to retaliate. The ARP Hargura, the Pensacola, each got a little bit of damage. I killed the Kagero. The Kagero and the Fletcher did decent damage to me, and they're lit up because they're the only survivors of the game. In the Udaloy, I got a few damaging hits in, but really not as much as I would have wanted. As far as credits and XP, quite a nice amount of credits, although you can see that repairing the Fletcher back to full health does take you 105,000 credits. It is quite expensive to operate ships at tier 9, and I believe that with the Fletcher I'm at the lower end of the spectrum. People seem to be getting repair bills which are higher than their actual winnings, so the tier 9 and tier 10 can be really, really expensive to operate. And as you can see, my commander is getting ready to develop some new skills, but it's going to be quite a long way off. So that concludes the video. Quite a few near-death experiences there in the destroyers, but that is what keeps it exciting. That is what keeps it exciting. That is what you play World of Warships for, and that's what I personally play destroyers for. If you want to link up at some point, be sure to add me on the EU server of World of Warships, Stealth 17. And if you have a destroyer, I'd love to division up or platoon up to wreak some more havoc among the enemy teams. For now, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more World of Warships or Wargame Red Dragon.